Hello, my fellow viewers. This is CT Woods Art, and I'm coming to you today to make another addition to the line of videos for learning how to paint with oil. Me personally, I think that painting with oil is a simple process. I think it's much easier to paint with oil than it is to use acrylics. And I have all the acrylic colors. I have the cheapest acrylics. I have the expensive acrylics. And from my experience, being a professional oil painter, um, to me, using oil is much easier, in my opinion. So, to to prove that, I'm just going to make a series of videos. If you would pay attention to the post of YouTube post and add and subscribe my videos to your YouTube, keep up with the progress of videos that are going to come behind the one that I made prior to this one and also this one. This video here is I'm going to start dealing with the oil paint on the actual on the palette, and how we operate with the palette knife and the different tools that are used to manipulate the paint on the palette. So without further ado, let's get to it. I'm going to turn the camera around. So this is my glass palette, and if you looked at the prior video to this, I explained to you how I got this palette. And just to add to the video before this one, make sure when you buy this glass that you get them to round off the edges. If you don't get them to round off the edges when you go to the glass place, just get them to polish the edges, because I have several of these. As you can see, I have this, and all the edges are polished. And I have several of these, and if you can see, you see dry paint on this glass. So just so you don't have to break the bank, make sure that you invest in a cheap razor scraper. I have a couple of different types of scrapers that I use. I use this one, which this one kind of fits into the palm of your hand and give you a little bit more pushing force, as you can push like this to remove the paint. If you turn it upside down, it kind of gets low to where it kind of scoops the paint off, and then you use paper towels to wipe off the wet paint, and you just throw it in the trash. And then this one here is just another variation of the scraper. This is the cover that goes on. And I bought a long tray of razor blades, single edge razor blades, to change the blades in these scrapers. Now, that's how you keep the palette clean. But in a later video, I'll show you that by using oil, you don't have to clean this palette every time that you use it. You can leave this paint. Now, I put this paint on the palette yesterday morning, and I come back today, and as you can see, the paint is still wet. You can use it. And this was put on the palette yesterday morning. Now, these other colors were put on 2 days ago. And as you can see, they're still wet. So, if you're moving from acrylics to oil, this here alone, every artist that paints know the struggle. And I laugh because some of you have never painted before, and you're looking at this video for the first time and kind of diving into the market of painting. But to anyone who has used acrylics exclusively, they know what my laugh just now was about, or how fast this stuff dries. You can put a squirt of acrylic paint on this glass palette, and you could actually spray it down with water, and you probably got about a 30 to 40-minute work time, if that, to get this paint from this glass palette onto the canvas. And there is some things that you can use that will cause acrylic paint to dry slow. I've used it. To me, now this is just my opinion, it works. It does retard the drying time of the acrylic paint, but it makes it bumpy and clumpy. Even though it's not dry, it's still clumpy. That is the same thing with the liquid that I've noticed. If you looked in the prior video, you use the liquid to speed up the time of the oil paint. When you want it to dry fast, you use liquid. Well, when you use the liquid, if you don't use the paint up quick enough, it'll start to get kind of lumpy and bumpy. So what I've learned to do is to just, if you want fast drying, I use the liquid on the very beginning to get the paint onto the canvas and basically get it to coat all the white of the canvas. And then after that, I'll use something that's a little bit fatter than the liquid that's going to dry a little slower. And I skip off from the liquid to probably some stand oil or either linseed oil with the oil paint. And then that dries slower than the liquid. So just to reiterate, what this video is all about is that we're going to deal with the palette today. And I hope to not let this video go no longer than 30 minutes. I'm trying to hold all the videos to 30-minute classes to where you're able to look at these and to actually be able to learn from each segment and each video. Now, when you put your paint onto the palette, especially, and see, this is something that I will get into later on with paint. And let me move this out of the way. What I've done is that I've gotten into, when I do skin tones, when I do my portrait painting, I put all my skin tone paints down in a row, and I'm able to work from this row of paints. These are the highlighted color. Now this is for just for Afro-American skin, and it is a warm tone paint for that type of skin. Now, when I do Caucasian, Asian, Indian, or whatever have you, in the artist world, all of those skins have different tones and hues and colors. And you have to, as an artist over time, you have to pick up on those variances where you know the skin tones based on the nationality of the subject that you're painting. So with some of my subjects, I'll use this skin tone, and then what I find with black Afro-American skin is that you will have more of the reddish tones of paint that's brown, and you'll have the yellows, such as this, as part of the colors of paint for that type of skin. And this color here, in the booklet in which I made, I've used this some, but not a lot. Now this is in my experience, because one of the things we'll get into later on, when we dive deeper into painting, at least when you're painting the human form, you have what you call cool shadows and warm shadows, and that's where you really get technical with painting, and that's something that we'll get into down the road. But for now, we're trying to keep the video as simple as possible, so I didn't want to dive too deep into those details because that's a whole nother hour-long segment. But just for the simplicity of paint on the palette, I'm going to go back to what I do. Since the paint doesn't dry fast, I just put down, sort of clump the colors in a family to where I kind of have the colors laid out. And what I do is I use these little droppers. You can buy these at Hobby Lobby, and they're pretty cheap. I mean, they're only maybe $1 a piece, and I got about 5 or 6 of them, and they're just a squeeze bottle with a hole in the top, and it comes with a little cap. Now, there was a little strap that came from here down to here that kept the cap from coming loose and losing it. But since I use mine so much that this is broken off, and now I just have the caps on. And then sometimes I don't even use the caps. Like this here doesn't even have a cap, but this, it takes forever to dry. So I tried labeling the bottles, but when you're using them and you're getting the residue on the sides and whatnot, I haven't found anything that would make this stick to it and stay on. So I kind of, by looking at the color, I kind of know what it is. But what I'll do is I will add, like this is I forget the name of it, but it's a very dark brown. And when it comes out of the tube, it is raw umber. When it comes out of the tube, it's very stiff, and it's almost, I wouldn't say impossible to work with, but it's very stiff. See? And trying to spread that onto the canvas to paint with is almost impossible. So just to add a couple of drops, just a couple of drops of the paint medium. Actually, this is dry and linseed oil. And you just take your palette knife and stir it. You see how the paint liquefies. And then that is what you use to paint with. Now, one of the downsides to using the linseed oils and all of the different mediums that I've found out is that when you put this onto the canvas, you'll find that when you look at it from an angle, the linseed oil will have what you call a sheen or shine to it when the paint dries. So in other words, you'll see a very shiny gloss texture in the paint when it finally dries. Now for me, I'm one of those type that when you look at the painting from any angle, I want all the different sheens and colors to have the same finish. So what I'll do, there's a lot of artists do what you call oiling out the painting once you're done by waiting for the painting to dry, and then they take Gamsol or either the Gamblin solvent-free fluid, and they go over the painting to make all of the finishes compare. Now they do, I think Liquitex and Gamblin, Winsor Newton, all of them make what you call a finish that you can actually go over the painting And this is a good one, which when you paint this over top of the painting, it makes everything a satin finish. So even if you mix a lot of medium into the paint, you're able to, once it dries, go over it with the satin finish, and you can make all of the different finishes and colors on the paint have a similarity finish. So, but you have to be careful with this because some of this is only designed to go on acrylics. Some is designed to go on oils. So you have to read the directions, and it'll tell you whether it's for oil or whether it's for acrylics, and then some are for both. And I'm reading this to see, and I'm not really sure right now, so I don't want to tell you anything wrong, but it says right here may be used on oil, alkali, and acrylic paintings. So this is suitable to use on all the different paints, oil and acrylics. So this is really a good product to use to put a gloss, not a gloss, but a seal on your painting once you're done. And it's kind of pricey, but you can get this at Hobby Lobby. I paid about $15 for this. It does go a long way, and it also unifies the finish once you're done painting. Now this is my palette knife of choice. What I do, a lot of people use rags. I mean, a lot of people use paper towels, but to me, I find that that's just not cost effective. I use old rags. Now I'm going to tell you something about these old rags. You can use them over and over and over again until they really get clumped up with paint, and then I just throw them away. But now what I will tell you is that you do not want to take these rags and get mineral spirits and all different types of combustible material soaked in this rag, and then ball them up and put them inside of a can in your studio, because they won't dry, and they say that it's combustible. So I don't ever put these in a can or store them dirty, soiled, in a closed-in area. I basically, once I use these for so long, I'll wash them, and then no matter how bad they look, I'll bring them back and just keep using them until they get soaked, and then that's when I will take them out and just dispose of them. Now, remember in the previous video, I was telling you about the mineral spirits. Now, we used it yesterday. Now look, it is completely clear. So there is no reason for you to throw your mineral spirits in your jar away every time that you use it. You can use this for months on end without changing this, because it's going to clear up overnight. And basically this is what I use to mix with the paint, or either I use a fast drying linseed oil. Now, the reason why these bottles are so small is because you don't really need much. Just a couple of drops, and it goes a long way. As you can see, that's what I mixed with the paint just a few minutes ago. And after you mix the paint together, you can use it just like this, or you can mix it with any other colors to create your colors. In a later video, we're going to discuss mixing paint and how I like to mix the paint. Now, this is something that I do because I'm very particular about paint getting everywhere. So I use a palette knife to mix my paint. I never really, unless it's something very, very minute, is that I try to keep the whites and I try to keep the blacks try to keep it not contaminated with the other colors. So say, for instance, I wanted to mix some white with this color here. Well, what I would do is I will make sure my palette knife is clean. No paint on the palette knife. I will come here with the white and I will scrape off what I needed. I will put it here. See that? And I would not take this and put it in my blue paint. I would take this and clean first. Now this is just me. This is what I do. As I said, you know, there might be some professional artists that may have another way of doing this, but this is what I do. And then I come here and take the paint, take off a bit, and then I mix with the white. See what I'm saying? And that's how you get your mix. Now what I've done is made somewhat of a Payne's gray, which is this color here. It's a little bit bluer than this one, but they're in the same family. The point of the matter is that I've mixed these two colors together, but I haven't contaminated the source, because you never want to put this into the white paint, because now if you mix that with the red, you're going to have this color mixed in with the red. Now, when you're mixing paint, that little bit of residue on that paint, on that palette knife, is enough to change the color variations between two colors that are close together. So just because it's a small amount of paint doesn't mean that it's insignificant in terms of when you're mixing. So I never try to mix my paints together unless I want to mix them together. Now, here's another theory that totally debunks what I just said, depending on the application. Now, when you're painting a portrait, even within these colors, you're going to have 10, maybe 5, 6 different variations of this color. So you would go from this color, maybe 5 shades lighter. So you'd have a bunch of colors out here of this color in different shades. And then you may even come and take some of the black and mix it in with this color and make a darker shade of it. Even though you could come down here maybe and get a darker shade of this color, but somehow or another, this just needs to have a darker tint than this actually is. And you may take your brush and just ever so lightly dip it into the black and come over here and get a dab of this and mix it together with the drying linseed oil or Gamsol or whatever medium you're using. And you want to make several different shades of this color. Now that's the only time that I recommend mixing colors with your brush. But I don't mean mixing big gobs of paint with your brushes. See, when you mix big gobs of paint with your brush, that paint goes into what you call the planket. This is the planket of the brush. You never want to have paint all the way up the bristles. You want to keep the paint in the lower half to a little bit over half of the brush down. You don't want paint to get into the planket. When you allow paint to get into this part of the brush, it makes these bristles stiff to where you take the flex out of the brush. Now, I'm going to tell you, you'll watch my channel, you will notice that all of my brushes doesn't have a speck of paint on the brush or the planket. I'm just a stiffler. That's just me. Now, when you go to doing your painting, you might be the type of artist that's got paint all over your clothes, all over the palette, all over your furniture, all over the floor. I started out painting as a carpenter in the construction business. So it was a thing to be neat with paint. That's just what you have to be to paint people's houses. You can't have paint everywhere. You can't have little dots of paint all over the floor. If you ever have a painting contractor to come to your home and paint, and he's got paint on your brand new Queen Anne couch, he's got paint all over the doors, all over the furniture. You see little dots of paint all over your flat screen TV. He didn't mask anything off. He just got paint everywhere. The walls look good, but he got paint all over everything. Okay, after 30 years of doing that, I'm just conditioned to just not have paint everywhere. So getting paint on the floor, getting paint on my brushes, it's a no-no, because that's how you keep the paint off your hands. I don't want paint on my hands. I don't want it on the brush, and I don't want it on the blanket. If you look at all of my brushes, you don't see a speck of paint anywhere, because I just specialize in keeping my brushes clean. I also, after so long, I'll do what you call a condition, to where I'll put my brushes in a cleaning solution and I let them soak for so long, and then I go and wash each one of them with dishwashing soap, and I let them air dry. Now, never stand the brush up like this wet, because once again, the water or whatever goes down into the wood and the blanket, and it causes the brush to come loose. Now, that's just a tip of how I do my brushes and my palette and my surroundings. If you as an artist, if that's what you want to do, by all means, do what makes you happy. But I'm just telling you how I keep things in order and how I keep my workflow running smooth, and why I'm able to create the paintings that I'm able to create. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to share with you is that I use, and many of you are going to laugh when you hear this, but I'm just going to be honest with you. I have this expensive blending brush from Hobby Lobby. I'm not really sure, but I know I paid a good penny for this. I don't even think it was on sale when I purchased it. But if you notice, some of the hairs come loose, which, I guess that's a natural thing that happens. But this is basically a blend brush. I have all the different sizes, but as you can see, there's one hair there coming loose. If you can see it with the camera. Now, that hair will get into the paint, and you have to get that off. In another video, I'm going to show you how to remove hair from the paint if you ever get brush hairs in your paint. And to keep from messing up your painting, there's a special way we artists use to get that out. Now, a cheaper way to save money on these blend brushes, and you can have a vast amount of these brushes, is that I go to Marshall's or Ross and I pick up makeup brushes. And this is basically a powder foundation brush. To me, to be honest with you, my viewers, this works 10 times better than the actual artist brush that they sell at Hobby Lobby. And I'm going to be honest with you, I bought a huge pack of these for like $7. $7 at Hobby Lobby. I mean, they have the big ones. You can get all different sizes. And I even have some that I've placed in here. If you can look in there, you can see some of the smaller brushes here. So these are just inexpensive makeup brushes that you get from Ross or Hobby Lobby. Jackie and Lauren Cosmetics. I mean, they work. So if any of you women viewers that are going to Hobby Lobby, or not Hobby Lobby, but Ross and Michael's and TJ Maxx and there's a shortage on foundation brushes, you can basically come and fuss at me because probably I've been through and gotten half of the country artists to in the country to start buying foundation brushes as their blend brushes. So I'll take full responsibility for that one. But anyway, that's just a tip that you can use to save money on buying blending brushes. Also, these are just some inexpensive, cheap brushes that I got from Hobby Lobby. They're really cheap brushes, but they work, especially when you're doing some rough painting, when you're doing some types of abstracts and you want to do some very unorthodox painting with the brush, because these brushes do take a beating. So some of the rough stuff that you do, you may want to use a cheaper brush to do it, because if it gets damaged or the bristles get frayed, it's nothing to just toss the brush and throw it away. But in terms of, just to recap, lay your paints out in an orderly fashion, kind of stacking light colors together, and add your linseed oil or your Gamsol or any other medium that you choose to use on your palette. Make sure you don't mix the colors together when you get the colors to put together to mix. In other words, don't mix your white with the black when you're trying to get a sample of each to make a gray. If you're trying to mix the green and red, keep the colors separated and mix it here, but get a sample here and don't put green in this, because when you get ready to mix this with the beige, you're going to have green mixed in that, and that's going to mess up the mix. So I try to be as neat as possible with my board until I get all my colors mixed. And then the only place that I'm messy is where I actually have colors mixed. That's when you start seeing the paint get a little messy. But these little piles of paint, I try to keep them uniform, and I try to keep them neat, and I try not to mix any paint into the pile. If I want to use this green mixed with something else, I'll take a sample of that somewhere else on the palette and mix it over there. So that's the reason why, if you take note, I have a big palette. My palette is huge. Now, this is just me, but my palette is huge because this is my workflow. Now, all of these things that you see setting up here, normally when I'm painting, they wouldn't be here. I would have them all off, and I would be able to switch this palette around. I'll be able to pick it up and turn it around and use color from the other side of the palette, because that's what I bought this for. I wanted it huge because I wanted to be able to do that. So this is my workflow, just to give you an idea as we introducing the new painters to oil painting. This and some of the stuff you may be able to use. Some of it is good advice for some advanced painters, and then some of it may not be what might be your cup of tea. Do what makes you comfortable with oil painting, because these are some things that I have picked up that I didn't get from anybody else, but along the way, I adopted this because I thought about it and it increased and helped my workflow. Now, when I sit down to paint, my workflow is easy. Like, I have these drawers with the basic colors that I use in this drawer. These are colors that I use often, so I really don't have a need to hang them up a long ways from me. But as you can see, I have a whole wall of colors here. But I don't use them as often as I use the ones that I just showed you. So I try to have them at my fingertips so I can get to them quickly. Now, I'm left-handed. Everything that I do when it comes down to paint, most of the time, I'm using my left hand. So if you take note, when I'm setting in front of the canvas, getting ready to paint, you'll notice the only thing over here is the remote to the TV, my cell phone, my iPad, and my paints that I use sometimes and seldom. But on the left-hand side, where the hand that I actually paint with, I have my brushes. I have on this side, where my left hand is, I have my Gamsol that I clean my brushes with. I also use two iPads. I use this one and the other. And the reason for that is because sometimes I'll have multiple pictures, such as what I'm working on now. I'll have a picture of the BMW that I'm painting. And then over here, I'll have a picture. I'll have a picture of the actual BMW symbol that I'm painting. And what that does is it allows me to look at that while I'm painting, and I'll be able to look at the car while I'm painting. So it just, you don't have to have two iPads. I mean, I'm not telling you that, but this is what I do to maximize my workflow, to create an environment where I can mass produce paintings. Because there's so much that I got to tell you, so much that I got to share with you from my experience in painting. There is so much. So I hope that you guys will subscribe to my channel and you will become a follower of my work, because there's so many things that I've learned over the years that has helped me so much. And I myself wished 1,000 times that I could have gotten all this information when I decided to become a oil painter or a painter in general. That if I had someone to give me all these tips up front, it would have really cut down on a lot of my time of trying to learn the different processes, and it would have really helped me jump way ahead of the game. So just to recap, this is my palette, and my palette is huge because I want the option to be able to turn it and use different parts of the palette and have all of my paint mixed out. And when I'm working on several different paintings, like I'll pull a painting off the wall and work on the paintings, I don't want to have to mix up another set of paints for that particular painting and this particular painting. So another benefit to using oil is that you can have all these colors on the palette and they'll stay wet. And if they dry a little bit, you don't have to scrape that dried part off. You can put some more wet paint of the same color right back on the pile and mix it together and use it. That's the beautiful part of the oil palette. I just can't express enough how simple this is. And even with how long it takes for it to dry here, when you paint on the canvas, you can come back tomorrow and pick up where you left off and never have to mix any more paint. All the paint that you put down today will be available for you to use tomorrow, the next day, and the next day. And really and truly, the only time that this paint will really dry fast is when you thin it out and put a thin layer on your canvas. That's when and I'll say this real quick. This video is about to come to an end. Oil paint doesn't dry. It's a process of oxidation where oxygen separate the oil from the pigment, and then the pigment aligns in such a way to where it becomes stable and it adheres to the substrate. Oil paintings, they cure for years after you paint. Even though it feels dry to the touch, this painting is still drying. Oil paintings takes years to dry. So yeah, this this is this is one of those journeys that you're going to be on a long time. It takes years to perfect and to learn all the things that is to learn about oil painting. Not to say that you won't be a good oil painter pretty quick. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying even if you become a good oil painter, which I think that I'm decent, there's still so much more to learn. I'm telling you guys what I know, but there's still so much more to learn. When you listen to some of the masters talk about oil painting, they go on and on and on, and they even after they tell you everything that they know, there's still so much more to learn. So I say before I signed off that I am truly, truly excited to keep making these videos, and I hope that through the amount of viewers and through the amount of subscribers, it will show me that I have something that the world would want to see, want to hear, want to learn. So let us know in the comments what you think about the video, the information. Did it help you? Did it not help you? Blah, 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 whatever. Any feedback is good feedback. So at least it lets me know that you're paying attention. Until the next video, keep painting and keep lighting the world up one painting at a time. Have a good day, and God bless.